It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right. I said at the beginning of the show, some of the headlines that we had were just hilarious this morning when we came in. One of them, National Review, Armand White's column, Rock Hypocrisy in the Real World. Rock Hypocrisy. Blinken parrots Neil Young's schizoid politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Surprise hipster Anthony Blinken, made a Rolling Stone magazine move this week when he strummed his axe at a speakeasy venue in Ukraine. He was rocking out to the Neil Young song, Rockin' in the Free World. NBC called it guitar diplomacy. But it also can be heard as hypocrisy, further proof that the left commands pop culture to the detriment of the American electorate and its traditions. And I just, oh my gosh, some of the sentences that he has in here. He said, but even Neil Young fans know that Blinken's song choice came across as inauthentic and unrousing. Rockin' in the Free World is a lesser Young composition that, when released in 1989, mostly appealed to pop music's rear guard, those rockist culture vultures biased towards white boy guitar rock and indifferent to black R&B. I mean, I couldn't get through the article. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, I guess I'm biased towards my own music, but I don't think I've ever been. I never took a song and said, this is who the exact listener is.
Yeah.
I just went. Now, I will admit that when this came out, I did have a buddy of mine say, oh, yeah, I'm going to this concert in September, and Neil Young headlines it. I go, you're going to see Neil Young?
Yeah, why?
And he says, yeah. And he said, yeah, why? I said, I'll answer it very quickly. Hey, my, rock and roll will never die. And then my response, it sure as hell will if it sounds like this very long, which was my comment back then when that song came out. And then I had to tell him, I go, look, I remember I was in high school and Heart of Gold came out, and I like that. So if he plays Heart of Gold 50 times, then I can stay.
Yeah, right.
And he goes, okay. Like, you could tell he was angry. He was a little bit perturbed at my Neil Young review.
Yeah, and my review of Blinken was just one question. What does Blinken know about the free world? Which free world are you talking about, dude?
But when he writes, I couldn't stop. I didn't even read this as a political article. It was.
Yeah, right, yeah.
With its chugga guitar riff, the easiest chord to learn, then flub, Rockin' in the Free World is not one of Young's beauties in the folk rock American tradition.
Yeah.
Wow. But the Ukraine performance suggests that Blinken never thought about the song beyond the fist-pumping, quasi-patriotic title.
Of course.
At age 62, Secretary of State Blinken apparently still wants to feel cool despite his sheepish, often dejected appearance.
Well, it doesn't say a lot for the Secretary of State in that we learned that his first song choice was 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. So,
But when he writes his often dejected appearance, and he's probably told he's cool by those in the Democrat Beltway bubble.
Yeah.
That's true, though.
Yeah.
That part.
He's probably being fed that line over and over again. Oh, that's really cool, man. You can play guitar like tens of millions of other people. You play it badly, also, like tens of millions of other people. Wow.
But the thing is, he writes an entire article on Blinken. I couldn't do that. He wrote an entire article on Blinken playing Rockin' in the Free World.
Yeah.
With an analysis of the song.
Yeah.
Blinken, Neil Young.
Right. Yeah, it's.
Oh my gosh, it was funny just to read that. That had me laughing.
Yeah, it's insane. It was really cringeworthy. I thought, just really.
Oh, doing it, yeah, I know.
Watching him. It's not the first time he's played guitar in public.
To show you how bad it was, Bill Clinton's saxophone playing, was it on The Tonight Show?
Arsenio Hall.
Mm-hmm. Was better.
Oh, by far.
That's how bad Blinken was. I just had to admit that Clinton was better than somebody else on a musical instrument.
By the way, I love the bit by John Mulaney that he tells in one of his stand-up comedian tells him one of his bits from a few years back about Clinton, whose theme song was "Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow" by the band Fleetwood Mac from the album Rumors, which was written by and about cheaters. John Mulaney. I love it. He's, by the way, John Mulaney's a liberal, so yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so, but I just thought that was hilarious. Clinton got away with it. You know, number one, he wore sunglasses. There's your first clue. Wear the sunglasses. Blinken was wearing, what was he wearing? Like a T-shirt and jeans. And by the way, if you play at they called it, a speakeasy bar in Ukraine. Pretty much every nightclub in Ukraine is a speakeasy right now. Let's just be clear.
There's not a lot of clubs with bright neon lights.
They don't have the big searchlights that everybody used to put out front. There's none of that. None of that at all.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Very quickly, we never finished we got just sidetracked. Can you believe that? The whole Scottie Scheffler situation at the
just wild how it rolled out.
The PGA the other day. Yeah, because when I saw, I got in my car.
Yeah.
And I was sitting out there before I backed off. I just looked at it. In fact, I was looking what music or whatever I was going to play off my phone, and there was the headline, the breaking news: Scottie Scheffler arrested. I go, somebody's got that wrong.
No, it's like my wife was having minor surgery, and I'm in the waiting room, and everything's fine. But I'm sitting there in the waiting room, and I look down at my phone. It's early. We had to be there at 7, and so it must have been just a few minutes after 7 when it started to break.
No, it was right after I saw it right there from the reporter that was there on
X. ESPN.
Yeah.
It was an ESPN reporter that first had it.
Was it I can't think of the guy's name. I don't know if he's ESPN or not, but he was there, and he's the one that said Scottie Scheffler said, mouth to him, please help me.
Yeah, right.
And he was right after 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when I looked down on my phone, and I'm like, wow, hold on a second. What's going on here? And I'm thinking same thing you thought. Something has to be wrong. Because, there were like an outstanding warrant or something, and Scheffler's not, I'm thinking to myself, what are all the possibilities? Well, he's not showing up like drunk, on Friday morning. That's not happening. He's not, so something happened here. And then the separate story, what we thought was a separate story, that broke. There was a bus accident, and a person was killed. So then Scheffler's booked, and his mugshot comes out.
I thought that was fake.
Yeah. It
thought-
didn't
yeah.
look like a mugshot.
Yeah.
Right? And so it did look like a very serious picture of him, but, other than that, you're right. It didn't. I was like, man, they kind of, maybe they were rushing it. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how mugshots work. But then he's being booked, and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to miss all of Friday. Now, at that point, they announced his tee time had been moved to 10 a.m.
Because of the accident outside the golf course.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, he's not going to I don't know if he's going to get back today. So if they tell him, okay, you got to appear before a judge, you got to do all these things and all that. If he doesn't get, if he's not granted bail, if they're not going to let him get back to it, the weekend is over for him. But primarily it's like, okay, what in the world happened here? And the description of it, a police officer was yelling, stop, 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 jumped on his car, the whole thing, pulled him out of his car, slammed him up against the car, put him in handcuffs, that whole thing. And then you see them, at that point, I was only seeing still shots of them escorting him in handcuffs. And then he gets back. He makes it back. It's like, okay, so far, no statement. No statement from the PGA. And then he releases a statement. And then he puts it together because the word had come out, the reports had come out that there was seemingly no connection between the bus accident and what happened to Scheffler. And then that turned out to not be true. That actually, it was all part of the same event. And Scheffler comes out and says, look, very sorry, there was a miscommunication. I didn't understand what directions they were giving me at the time. I would never disregard any instructions by a police officer and that kind of thing. And this is all just, this is all just confusion. But not before being charged with, one felony and a handful of misdemeanors?
I think three misdemeanors. I know that near where I live, every year they have, the 5 million Christmas lights, which means there's cops directing traffic all over there at night.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't know what to do. You can't figure out what's going on
Mm-hmm.
with the signals that the police officer's giving you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have
especially in the dark.
Right, and it was in dark, raining, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
if two police officers, and I heard one story that one police officer told him one thing, he was paying attention to that police officer. The other police officer was telling him something different. Your windows are probably closed, or you just have them open a little bit because it's raining hard. And he was just trying to get into the entrance he was supposed to go into that he didn't know was closed because of the accident.
Right.
And so he thought that's where they, were directing him, and boom, then the cop grabbed onto the car or whatever. And I don't even know whether he knew the cop grabbed onto the car or not in the rain because it was dark. Right.
Because if the cop jumped onto the car and he didn't know that, and there's no evidence that he was aware of that, then is that assault of a police officer? Where does the assault charge come in?
Well, there has to be some type of intent. I did read Fox News had one golf podcast saying that, Jefferson County prosecutors, a source said, probably will drop the charges.
Yeah. It really, from the beginning, it felt like some kind of huge misunderstanding. And then when you learn about the chaotic scene that it was with the accident, and it was a fatality accident, and that is going to be at such a huge event, right? Not just in the normal everyday traffic, flow, but at such a huge event where things are, and you and I have been to, these types of events. I mean, you gotta go to the right place.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place where you got to go. They're going to, if you're in the media, like us, well, we're going to meet you here at this point and then take you over here to where you're going to be broadcasting from or wherever it's going to be and all that. It's a very coordinated thing. There are lots of people involved. I can't imagine at Scheffler's level, any of the players, what that is like, getting there. And they're all in the cars that are provided for them, for that tournament. So I could, it just sounded, it reeked of something that was very chaotic and a huge misunderstanding.
Well, it was funny because I saw one story that said, one source said, do you know who I am? like in the arrogant way that you would say that.
Yeah, right.
But if you're right outside the golf course trying to get in, if you say, "Do you know who I am? I'm trying to get in here."
Right.
That's a complete. I was trying to get in there. I'm supposed to be in there. I'm telling you who I am, not because because it almost, when I saw that first report, I've said they're trying to make it sound like it was a DUI, and you're trying to get out of a DUI.
Right.
Going, do you know who I am?
Right. Yeah.
And it seemed like no, he was trying to get in that entrance. Do you know who I am? I'm a golfer. I'm supposed to be in here.
Yeah.
And but then I didn't see that one. Again. All I know is anybody who was there, including the reporters, said it was so hectic, so chaotic, so disoriented because of the rain and the lights and everything else that easily, you could have mistaken and done the wrong thing.
Yeah. Right.
And
it
so,
seemingly happened very quickly.
Yeah. And there's no intent. He didn't.
Right.
There's no intent. He wasn't running from cops. There were no drugs in his car. He wasn't. It was 5 a.m. when this thing happened, a little after 5 Eastern time. So it was like, and I had thought all the time, I said, I bet you the charges are dropped. I bet you, because it's like, how do you prosecute that? There seems to be no intent. Now, that's how you play it in this press conference, though. He complimented the cops and talked about what a great job they always do and all that. So, it was that was just bizarre, though. Right. I will admit, I kept looking for, is there any wife with the golf club?
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're not going back there again.
Yeah, apparently that's not going. That's not a repeat of years past. Right?
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Most of us outdoor grillers do most everything right. We use a food thermometer to make sure we've cooked meat and poultry to a bacteria-killing temperature. We use one set of platters and utensils to handle raw meat and poultry, a different set for the cooked product. But there's still a way to mess up things, right? Yep. Meredith Carruthers, Agriculture Department food safety expert, says most of us mess up by not washing our hands when we should. She says in a cookout situation, we need to wash our hands immediately after each time that we've touched any raw meat or poultry products, because bacteria from them will likely end up on our hands, and we can unknowingly spread it to anything we touch, other foods, doorknobs, countertops, phones.
It's crazy what your hands can move around.
Yes, and it's not like that bacteria will die immediately. In fact,
certain bacteria can live on surfaces for like 72 hours.
And can cause illness days after the cookout, illness that could produce a bit of discomfort.
But it could also be as severe as causing death.
So hand washing, very important. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I guess it's the Iranian president, foreign minister, and other officials confirmed dead in that helicopter crash.
Yeah, President Raisi. It was late yesterday into Sunday evening, actually throughout the day yesterday, that we learned of at first it was called a hard landing from state television in Iran, and then they were looking for signs of life. They found no signs of life, and then eventually state TV in Iran confirmed the death of the president of Iran. Geopolitically, it's not going to change anything. Iran is still going to behave the way that they've behaved. This may be a bit disruptive in the process, but they will find a new president and then go from there. But nothing will change. But state television in Iran in the last several hours has confirmed the death of their president.
have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app, and you can listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Michael Cohen to return to the stand. Today, cross-examination to be finished by the defense, they say. And then the cross-examination, or excuse me, the, what do you call it again? Well, not the cross-examination. Oh, I forgot what you call it again. When the redirect for the prosecution will take less than an hour, is what prosecutors have said. The defense witness list isn't still ready yet. They said that could be completed by today if the defense, though, I'm assuming the defense will ask for a direct verdict from the judge.
Yeah, right.
Interesting. I just believe the judge won't give it. If you were to ask
I
me
don't
right
have
now,
confidence he will.
Yeah.
I don't know why he would after all this. That would seem like a 90-degree turn for him based on everything so far.
could he? Because think about this: when we didn't know anything, when we knew zero facts about what the prosecution was going to bring in, we knew this was an extremely weak case. We knew that it was a bogus case to begin with.
Yeah.
Now that the witnesses have testified, including the major witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, you and I were talking about The View the other day, and The View talking about the Kansas City kicker and everything that was said about him. We were talking about The View and some of the hosts of The View talking about the fact that this Pope is much better than this guy because the Pope is sympathetic towards LGBTQ. It's like the Pope believes that gay marriage is a sin.
Right.
The Pope believes that sex between unmarried, gay, or straight couples is a sin.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, are they going to apply this? I don't know how we got into talking about it. We just got into a bizarre room talk, and it's like, well, let's look at it. Because we were talking about that, and then at the same time talking about this case, I got into, bearing false witness against an ex-president, that's a sin.
Yeah.
And all the perjury
Michael
charges,
Cohen.
all the perjury charges he had, bearing false witness against more neighbors,
Right.
is a sin. Stormy Daniels, sin. But we're not judging. We're not judging.
No, it's not our job to judge.
Not our job to judge.
That will happen at a later date. Elsewhere.
It's like
yeah.
But most of the stories seem to be focusing on, will Trump testify? That's not the story. The story is, will the judge grant a direct verdict saying, sorry, this case is way worse now that I have information. There's nothing here. And I don't know. I don't know how it works in court like this. Because wouldn't you as a defense attorney say, Judge, number one, the star witness, we believe, committed perjury.
Yeah.
The star witness, is not credible.
Right.
But even if you believe the star witness, he exonerated the president. There was nothing wrong with what the president did right there.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecution hasn't defined what the crime is.
Right. Right.
If you tell us we need to present our side, we don't know what we're presenting it against. And so we respectfully request that you demand that the prosecution give Donald Trump his due process rights and tell him precisely the crime that he's been accused on. And frankly, Judge, with all due respect, no, I wouldn't say this. I would just leave it at that. My thought would be, judges, how did you let this? You never insult the judge.
Yeah, right. Listen, you moron. Yeah, don't start with that.
And then if he says, direct request, go, well, Judge, we don't know what to do. We don't know what we're defending because you just said this trial can continue. We asked what the specific crime is from the prosecution. They haven't identified it. You haven't identified what the crime is. How are we supposed to put on a defense when we don't know what the specific crime we're defending Trump against is?
Right.
Will they get to that point? Because that's what's going on right now. I mean, that's the questions that we have, that everybody has. What's the crime?
Yeah. Could you spell it out?
Right. We know that the agreement, none of that was against the law.
Right.
In fact, Cohen's testified to that.
Yep.
That it was, we all know that was legal. Trump didn't use any campaign money. It was his money.
Yeah.
The prosecution judge, and I would say as a defense, how do you give to the judge? We can't defend it. How can you give the jury instructions?
I've been wondering that all along. I mean, I don't know. Because if you're going to do this the way it's been going, does the judge just tell the jury, hey, Alvin Bragg claims this law was broken. Do you believe he's proven his case? I mean,
well,
I don't know how you get there, but as loosely as this thing has been presided over, it wouldn't shock me if he just goes, yeah, well, I don't know. Do you believe Bragg? There's your instructions.
Well, as Turley said, it doesn't matter whether you believe Bragg. There's no crime.
Right, that's it.
What Bragg alleges isn't a crime, so what's the crime?
If you're going to play
Judge?
this by the book, the instructions would be, here's the statute. Here's what he presented. Does it meet the statute? You got to give them specific instructions.
Well, and it's like, I'm sure this judge would say, well, you can do that in closing arguments. But the whole point, judges, is the fact that if there isn't a clearly identified crime, then the due process of our client, there has been no due process. What he's going through is constitutional. And if you're saying, because this is what Turley is saying, that Bragg is hoping the judge just says, Judge, you the jury figure out if a law has been broken that the prosecution can't define.
Right.
That's not how trials work.
No.
Jury, could you find the crime, please?
Right.
No, it's supposed to be clearly set out by the prosecution with the judge and the defense understanding what my client is being charged precisely with and how does it apply. How can this jury give a guilty verdict on a federal crime that isn't a federal crime?
It's not a crime.
Everybody's reviewed it. Nobody would prosecute on it.
Right.
Trump didn't even get a campaign finance civil violation on it.
No.
Because he used his own money.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. It's got to be so frustrating if you're a defense attorney in this case, because all you're looking for is, Judge, the prosecution now has rested. We don't know what the crime is.
Right. I really don't. I don't know how it goes. Because because it will get down to the instructions for the jury. Because I have not once believed, since it was talked about, since it was introduced, the idea of defense saying, "Hey, we want a direct verdict." I've never believed that Merchan was just going to go, Oh, yeah. Well, okay. No, you have a point. He didn't make his case. So, sorry, prosecution, you didn't make your case. I didn't see it going that way. I still don't. And
yeah.
if you are going to give the jury instructions, you're going to have to get specific with them. And if you don't, inevitably you're going to have it, because it happens sometimes even if you give them specific instructions. But inevitably, if you don't give them clear instructions, the jury's going to come back to you with questions, and they often write notes to the judge. What does this mean? What does that mean?
What is the crime?
Hey, could you tell us what the crime is? Can you give us the statute? Could you give us the actual law that he says is being broken?
And then you have, because this question was asked about Jonathan Turley yesterday on Fox News, and the former, I can't think of his name, the former assistant attorney general, and said, well, do you think that Costello, and Costello is the lawyer, well-known lawyer who testified last week on Capitol Hill, and said, Trump didn't even know about this.
Right.
Costello was Cohen's lawyer. I said, no, he said the opposite. He's saying the opposite. He's lying about everything. And so they asked both Turley and the former assistant attorney general, is Costello going to testify? They go, they don't need anybody to testify.
Right.
The defense has just destroyed themselves. And it's like, yeah, but the defense is going to do something if the judge says go forward. And so I'd call Costello. You and I saw him as a witness before Congress. From what we know, he has impeccable credentials. He has no fear of testifying. And there is no attorney-client privilege anymore because Cohen waived it years ago.
Right.
So the attorney can come up and say, exactly, here's what he told me. I mean, Costello would destroy him.
Yeah, right.
And then, who else do you call? I don't know. Your best defense witness so far has been the prosecution's witness.
Yeah. That's how bad it's gone. That's how bad this entire thing has been.
What do you think? I'd love to be a fly in the wall, when the lawyers meet with Bragg every day. What do you think it was like when they met on Thursday? Because they didn't meet on Friday because Trump had his son's graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the meme? Hunter Biden on one side and Trump's son on another.
Oh, yeah.
Graduating. It's like,
yeah.
It makes a difference what father raised you.
No kidding.
It's like, oh, my God. It was
no
brutal.
kidding.
It was just brutal.
And by the way, Barron is like 6'7", 6'8" now. Is he done growing? He might not be. This kid could be 7 feet tall before it's all over with.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's so tall. But it was one of the, by the way, also a very normal, very relatable event. Trump attending the graduation of his son.
Mm-hmm.
That millions of families are going through that right now. Tell me what's normal right now with the Biden family. There's nothing normal. Because when you see Biden outside of the setting, when he's on vacation, you don't see him much. And if you do, it's a long shot of him sitting somewhere on a beach looking into the water, making you wonder, does he even realize he's at the beach? It's not good.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You and I played the audio cut earlier of Kristen Welker from Meet the Press going after Marco Rubio, saying, will you accept, no matter what, the legitimacy of the election in 2024? And he goes, what do you mean, no matter what? And then they got into an argument back and forth. That's going to be, I always knew that was going to be their number one question because they have nothing else. But also it's going to be their number one question. It's the only thing they've got and they're especially just livid when the poll last week. What was it? Was that the NBC? What was the poll that had come out last week that was just brutal for Biden?
New York Times Siena.
New York Times Siena poll.
Yeah.
But the polls that are showing that by a over double-digit number, people believe that Donald Trump would defend the democracy more than Biden. That's the only thing that the Democrats have promoted for the last year is Trump being a threat to democracy, and I think that's just killing them right now. Absolutely just killing them. They can't handle that.
They've got nowhere to go. Once the Bragg trial is over, they've got nothing.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.